get, $10 is taken away from you. I'll sit across from the table here with you all day long. I'll pass $1 across, and you pass $10 back to me, because that's what it's all about. When we talk about pre-existing conditions, insurance companies have to insure, guess what? The practical end result of that legislation is this. As of September 23rd, and that's when that part of that bill went into force, no insurance company in the state of Florida will issue a child-only policy anymore. What they did is they shut it down with that legislation. So that didn't work. You can't force a for-profit company to sell a product that they got to give away and take losses. That's why businesses fail. They just don't understand that. When they talk about the problems with the health care legislation right now, that they need this doctor fix and things like that, my opponent's an attorney. In his law practice, he would have never had anybody sign on to something that he didn't fully understand to begin with, yet he supports this bill fully. So those are the things, ladies and gentlemen. We have to stop speaking that we're going to attack a corporation here and attack a corporation there. That can't be done. We have national deficits that are going on, they're obscene. China owns 15% of our national debt. 15% of our national debt. He likes to say that the Republicans support the privatization of Social Security. I'm a Republican. I'm opposed to the privatization of Social Security. But let me tell you with one exception, and listen closely. Since Social Security was brought into fruition, the average rate of return has been less than 2% on your dollars. If that money had just been invested in U.S. Treasury bills and off limits to congressmen from spending it, it would have earned more than 5%, and China wouldn't own 15% of our country. You know that the borrower is servant to the lender, and we're going to be a servant. As far as Israel's concerned, I agree with my opponent. I reject any notion that comes up here in the United States that says Israel is our problem, and if we would release our support of Israel, we won't have problems. I reject that notion. We need to fully support Israel. I am a strong proponent of Israel. This administration has allowed the reactors to be turned on in Iran as of August 21st, and they're within a year away of building 3 nuclear warheads. That should not have been allowed. Something needs to be done. The sanctions have not worked. I'm Joe Budd. Again, I'm going to ask you, this November, this Bud's for you. Thank you very much.
Now we'll take 2 questions, and if you have a question that both the candidates could respond to on an issue, that would be even better. Go in the back.
This is for Mr. Deutch. You keep referring to the donut hole. I'm a senior citizen. I live on Social Security. I've never reached a donut hole, so I'm really not interested in a donut hole. Thank God I'm healthy. However, let me finish, please, ladies and gentlemen. However, it's my understanding, like in 2010, you referred to COLAs. 2010, we did not get a cost of living increase. And in 2011, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to get one either. So who cares about the donut hole? I'm not getting the cost of living increase. He had to explain how he's so interested in a donut.
First of all, ma'am, I am thankful that you don't hit the donut hole, as I'm sure that you are. For an awful lot of the people that I represent, a lot of the seniors that I represent, who are on a lot of awfully expensive medications, they do hit the donut hole, and I will talk about the hole. And
ask a question, then he's going to answer.
And I don't think that it's my responsibility to look out only for the seniors who aren't forced to spend a lot of money on prescription drugs. I think it's my responsibility to look out for all the seniors I represent, and that's why I think we need to close the donut hole. That's number one. As far as COLAs, Congress doesn't determine whether or not there's a cost of living adjustment. It's not Congress's doing. It's based on a formula that the Social Security Administration uses. And that formula needs to be changed. And I appreciate your interest in it, since I've made this a top priority of mine to change the formula so that it adequately reflects the cost that seniors incur, so that even though the cost of an iPod or a computer or a TV might have gone down, the fact is that prescription drug prices are up, medical costs are up, and as a result, we need to balance it so that those are weighted more heavily. That's how we're going to ensure that there's an adequate cost of living adjustment. It's a change that has to be made. It will benefit seniors across this country, and at a time when things are so tough for so many seniors in particular, and a lot of people I represent move down here for the quality of life, things are only getting harder for too many of them. This will help to ensure that their Social Security payments make their lives a little bit easier, and that's an obligation that I take seriously.
I have a question for Joe Budd or both of the candidates.
The way it seems to me that there will be no middle class whatsoever. Either you'll be very rich or you'll be very poor, and that's what's happening to our country. You don't realize we don't get any interest on our money. That money stays in the bank for them to go wherever they want to go. But why don't they help the senior citizens and give us, in the banks, the interest that we earn? What we're doing right now, we're into our savings. And once that's gone, there's not a middle class. There'll be either the poor or the rich. And that's what's happening down the pipe. Thank you.
Should we both respond to that? Okay. Thank you. That's a fantastic question. And just this month, numbers were released that a record 42 million Americans are on food stamps. Ladies and gentlemen, the unemployment rate is a severe crisis. My opponent voted just a month ago on a $23 billion bailout of unions, and it was funded by $12 billion in cuts from food stamps. That is a matter of fact. You can look up the record. We cannot be doing that. We must make a business-friendly environment, take off our attorney's hats, stop litigating against corporations, allow people to get to work. Ladies and gentlemen, when people get to work, that's tax flows coming into the system. That makes Social Security last. That makes Medicare last. That makes Medicaid last. We need to get people back to work. Listen, I had a failure 20 years ago in a recession. Okay? That put my family on food stamps. That's a hard thing. I can feel for the people today that are unemployed. I've been there 20 years ago. You cannot cut those programs. Those people don't want a handout. They want a hand up. They want legislation that will help them climb themselves out of those holes that this country and this leadership, this partisan leadership, these career politicians keep digging that hole deeper for them and putting them in it. Things need to change. We have to get people back to work.
I appreciate the question. First of all, I could not agree more that our top priority is to get people back to work. That bailout that my opponent just referred to, let's be clear what that was. It was $23 billion. That money went to make sure that our teachers keep working, that our firefighters stay on the job, and that our police officers are there to protect us. That's what that money went for. I'm not ashamed to support that legislation. Now, I acknowledge that there is this growing separation. And that's why I think that this tax debate that we're having is a really healthy one. The fact is, you've heard a lot about the deficit and how are we going to get the debt under control. And it's an absolutely vitally important discussion. And so when we have an opportunity to move forward on a change to the law, to give tax cuts to the middle class who needs it, who needs that money to be able to put back into the economy, help creating other jobs and helping themselves, we need to make sure that the middle class gets those tax cuts and that they remain in place permanently. That's important. But at the same time, we can't have a discussion about giving additional tax cuts to people who make $1 million a year without also acknowledging the impact that that's going to have on the long-term deficit in this country. The Republican pledge will cost this country, it will add over $4 trillion in the next decade to our debt. We can't afford that. We ought to be giving tax cuts to the middle class, people who need it, the people who will put that money to good use, helping themselves and our economy, and we should take that additional money, instead of taking that money and giving tax cuts to people who haven't asked for them, we should take that money and help build a long-term economic foundation for this country by paying down our debt. Thanks. It's a great question.
Thank you for coming here today.
Thanks.